They said the official deemed that Clark intentionally made contact, therefore a technical foul was assessed. No, you don't. That is a terrible call.
She got fouled twice and pushed into you. If you would have called one of the fouls, this wouldn't have been an issue. But because you are so piss poor at your job, you don't call anything. Now you're forced to, now you're talking, oh, she ran into me with her forearm. It was, what? Call the first two fouls, man. She didn't say anything to you. She didn't mean to run into you. She clearly got bumped into you. So what do you give?
ESPN called up Adam Silver themselves. Like, Adam, you out your fucking mind with this dumbass referee suspending CC? Are you out your dumb mind with this foolish referee suspending CC for my Tuesday game?
No, Caitlin Clark was suspended, and then suddenly she wasn't. And buried between those two completely different outcomes is one of the strongest examples yet of a WNBA officiating crew appearing to decide what Clark meant before anybody seriously examined what actually happened. She wasn't fined and sent on her way. She wasn't warned, benched for a few minutes, or told after the game that she needed to be more careful. The ruling would have taken her completely out of Indiana's matchup with the New York Liberty, one of the biggest games remaining on the Fever's schedule. Then the league finally reviewed the sequence, reversed the technical, and the suspension vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. That's what makes this so revealing. The original whistle was serious enough to remove the league's biggest star from a marquee game, yet once the footage reached people who could formally reconsider it, the punishment couldn't survive review.
Can we talk about the Caitlin Clark play where she gets off balance and she goes into the referee? The referee takes a good 2 seconds and says, you know what, I'm going to hit her with a technical foul. I legitimately think, and the WNBA has since rescinded this would have been her 8th technical foul, she would have missed the next game. I think what I see right there on the screen is the single worst call in the history of basketball. I have never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's brutal. And you know what's funny? They have now, and again, people are digging up the old clips of that ref actually getting like pushed and bodied and not calling up. And then you got Monica McNutt on that other network being like, I don't know, maybe it was the right call because I saw someone bump into a coach one time. It's crazy. That call was insane. They did rescind it, which is actually shocking. There was another Caitlin technical where she was mad at herself for missing a shot and she like hit the stanchion and she got a T for that as well. So listen, the league is out of control. It's off the rails, and I can't stop watching. I've been preaching now for years that this league is the most passionate. They hate each other, the infighting, the dating, the cultural, the politics. In a league in the NBA where people like LeBron's two pally pals with everybody and everyone's kumbaya, no one really cares. This league...
Reversals like that don't usually happen because an official's judgment was merely a little debatable. They happen when the original decision becomes extremely difficult to justify once the evidence is examined outside the speed and emotion of live action. And that brings us right back to the question that has followed Clark through this entire season. If replay made the mistake clear enough for the league to wipe the technical away within hours, why was the play interpreted that way to begin with? More importantly, why does Clark keep finding herself at the center of these situations? One questionable whistle can happen to anybody. A second can still be dismissed as bad luck. But when similar controversies repeatedly involve the same player, and the league keeps being forced to revisit what happened after the fact, eventually people are going to stop asking whether each individual mistake is random and start asking whether the standard being applied to her is different.
She got fouled. She got bumped into the They think what is that? What is that? First of all, you idiotic ref who probably should be collecting trash on Tuesdays and Thursdays or whichever day your trash men pick up your trash from your curb. First of all, if you would have called the first foul or the second foul, because she got bumped twice on that drive, which sent her into the baseline, which forced her to run into you. If you would have called one of the first two fouls, she would have never ran into you.
Go back to the play itself. Clark is moving at full speed after a loose basketball, trying to recover while being pushed off the path she was originally taking, and attempting to stay involved in the play as everything carries toward the sideline. At that speed, a human body doesn't simply hit a brake pedal and stop instantly. She ends up making contact with an official, because the official is directly in the path her momentum is carrying her toward. There is no visible search for contact, no change of direction designed to initiate it, and no obvious decision to confront the referee. Slow the clip down, run it again, look at another angle. The explanation stays basically identical. Momentum carried a player into an official during a chaotic basketball sequence. That's not some extraordinary act of misconduct. Similar incidental collisions happen throughout professional basketball without becoming major disciplinary stories. Yet in Clark's case, the whistle turned that ordinary physical sequence into technical foul number 8, and because it was her 8th, that technical automatically triggered a 1-game suspension.
We handled that business, and Caitlin Clark had an 8 technical foul rescinded. Won't be suspended Tuesday. Yeah, and the ref that did that mess, knowing that shouldn't even been happening. Yeah, let's go and get up out of here. I don't know if referees get licensed or what they get, but let's revoke them. Because at this point, all conspiracy theorists and people that say certain things look to be correct, because there's no way any human being with a brain in you don't even gotta be the smartest, just at least have a brain in your head, know that shouldn't have been a technical. So they either look like you against them or they look like you're gambling.
And that's the detail that should make people pay attention. Nobody is arguing officials never miss calls. Every league, every sport, every season has whistles that look terrible once replay gets involved. The concern is how aggressively this particular play was interpreted against this particular player. There wasn't a deliberate shove. Clark didn't square up an official, lower a shoulder, or make some obvious movement indicating she wanted contact. She was sprinting, losing balance, trying to remain in the play, and eventually ran out of space. Somehow the ruling on the floor treated a collision created by speed and positioning as if intent could be read directly into the contact. That's a massive distinction when a technical carries an automatic suspension. Officials aren't just deciding whether something happened. They're effectively deciding what a player meant by it, and if you're going to attach that kind of consequence to the judgment, the evidence for deliberate behavior should be a lot stronger than a player being unable to magically stop her momentum.
Caitlin Clark telling Holly Rowe, I'll see you on Tuesday and I'll be playing, is absolutely crazy, but she's right. I mean, and I said in my live, I'm like, it's going to be rescinded. I'm pretty confident it's going to be rescinded. But Caitlin Clark called that shot. She said, I'll see you on Tuesday. Because, of course, Holly asked her about it right after the game. She's like, yeah, it was unintentional contact. I didn't even say anything to her. I said nothing.
Clark's own response afterward made the whole thing look even stranger. She didn't storm into the post-game interview furious. She wasn't screaming about the referees or turning the moment into some huge public confrontation. She calmly explained there was no intent behind the contact, said there hadn't been any exchange between her and the official, and revealed that she had already watched the sequence again herself. Even after reviewing it, she couldn't see anything that should have justified the suspension. That reaction matters, because this didn't look like somebody trying to walk back an emotional outburst after realizing she'd crossed the line. Clark never appeared to believe she had done anything intentional in the first place. And after months of controversial whistles, she almost sounded like a player who has learned that arguing in the moment won't help her. Instead of creating another confrontation with officials, she trusted the replay to show what happened, because by this point, she seems well aware that the benefit of the doubt is rarely something she should expect to receive automatically.
She makes contact after kind of like stumbling a little bit, throwing the ball in, and she makes contact with the ref. The ref assesses Caitlin Clark with a technical, which some would be like, okay, not the biggest of deals. Maybe, go back and try to argue, whatever. But it was number 8, which makes number 8 be the one that will suspend her for the next game. Caitlin told Holly rather confidently, I'll see you on Tuesday. That was the fastest rescinded technical I've ever seen. Oh, I went to
It was like an
ESPN.
hour after.
It was like technical, and then as soon as I was like technical rescinded right underneath, I was like, yeah, I think they got it right too. I don't think that there was any intention. Listen, I'm on her side on this one.
Think about how unusual that level of calm actually is. when professional athletes believe they have been unfairly handed a suspension, especially one that would remove them from an important game. Frustration usually shows itself somehow. They question the decision, they complain, they make sure everybody understands exactly how angry they are. Clark sounded almost accustomed to the process. It was as if she already understood the sequence: questionable whistle, controversy, replay, appeal, then wait and see whether somebody above the officiating crew fixes it. She didn't need to deliver some massive speech because the tape was stronger than anything she could say. That resignation is arguably more telling than an angry reaction would have been. It suggests a player who has been through enough of these interactions to understand that making her case directly to the officials isn't necessarily going to change anything. So instead of trying to win an argument on the floor, she let the evidence carry the argument afterward.
Yeah, she intentionally seeked out the official.
You were backwards to them. Did you even know they were there in that moment?
And through the forearm. That too.
Did you know they were there?
No.
Did they give you
really bad.
a different explanation of any kind?
No, that's
Gave
what I
us
was
the
told.
same
That's what I
explanation.
was told.
What
Yeah.
was your tech for the argument?
My tech was for saying that, even though I heard the F-bomb the whole game. My tech was for saying that. Like that's a bad call. That's a bad call. Incidental contact when you're flying out of control, like on it. And I thought her teammates should have come up and talked to her about that as well. Like I think that's really bad. That happens all the time in the game. Officials have to have some awareness in those moments, and it didn't happen.
I presume you plan to appeal that one.
Yes.
It's already appealed. I just hope the league makes the right decision. Hopefully I can play on Tuesday. Wednesday, whatever day that is.
Stephanie White, however, didn't bother hiding what she thought, and on this particular issue she was right to speak clearly. White called the ruling a bad call without wrapping the criticism in 10 layers of diplomatic language. Her explanation was simple. The contact was incidental. Clark was moving uncontrollably toward the boundary, and physically she could not stop herself before colliding with the official. That's not some elaborate coaching excuse designed to protect a superstar. It's a basic description of the mechanics of the play. More importantly, White's willingness to say it publicly tells you how much patience Indiana appears to have lost with this kind of officiating. Coaches understand the potential consequences of criticizing officials. They know the league can fine them, they know their words get dissected, and they know every future interaction with referees becomes part of the conversation. So when a head coach immediately says the crew got it wrong before a formal appeal has even played out, that's not meaningless post-game noise. That's a coach deciding that staying quiet is no longer more valuable than calling attention to what her team believes is happening.
Clark has a growing technical foul resume with the funniest collection of tees for someone who has 50 uncalled flagrants in 70 games and 22 phantom calls in 17. All right, she got a technical foul for clapping, right? This is craziness. She got a technical foul for clapping. She got a technical foul for kicking the ball up to herself and then giving it to the referee. If I remember correctly, she didn't kick the ball to the referee. She played with it, she dribbled it a little bit, kicked it up to herself, and then gave it to the referee, teed up. Fist arm gesture, teed up. Yelled scoreboard, teed up. You forgot, she slapped the stanchion sign, teed up. Now this latest example, she bumped into a referee and she gets...
And that's where the larger issue begins, because this technical wasn't some random first incident. It was initially Clark's 8th of the season. Go back through several of the others and you can understand why Fever fans believe a pattern has developed. Clark gets knocked to the floor on a screen and doesn't get the call she expects, then says something to an official and gets punished for the reaction. During another heated sequence, she claps toward opposing players and the action gets interpreted as taunting, technical. She takes repeated physical contact, believes she's not getting whistles, verbally expresses that frustration, and again the response becomes a technical against her. Viewed one at a time, someone can probably construct an argument for several of those calls. That's the nature of subjective officiating. But when you stack all of them across an entire season, the question changes. Are officials applying the same emotional tolerance to Clark that they apply to everyone else? 8 technicals is significant. For almost any other player, that number would invite examination of both sides of the relationship between the athlete and the officiating crews, not simply another lecture about the player needing to control herself. What? Tech on.
Clark, and that one is
For
going to
something.
put her above the threshold.
That means she's suspended next game, right?
For Indiana's Tuesday game. So after all of that, what are we actually left with? What do you even have?
Really had been focused.
What in the world? What is going on?
To avoid getting that next
I'm so
technical.
lost. Did they just give Stephanie White a tag?
Stephanie White gets one as
What
well.
is happening? Falling.
So Caitlin was
passes.
frustrated that she did not have a foul.
Kind
called
of
on
touched the ref,
defender.
I guess, but did she say something?
And then it's the other end of the floor where she says something to the official.
Is she out for the rest of this game or just next game or what?
So
she
clearly
falls.
was a foul, was not called.
So she thinks she hit her?
Oh.
Now compare that treatment with the physical and emotional behavior that happens around the rest of the league every night. WNBA games are intense. Players argue, they get frustrated, they talk to officials, they celebrate directly in front of opponents. They absorb hard contact, complain about missed calls, and occasionally get in a referee's face during important moments. That behavior does not automatically produce a technical every single time. Yet with Clark, it often feels like the reaction is being watched more closely than the action that caused the reaction. She gets hit. The whistle doesn't come. She responds to being hit. Then suddenly the response becomes the officiating story instead of the original contact. That's where fans start feeling like referees are managing a narrative instead of simply managing a basketball game. You can have two players display almost the same level of emotion in comparable situations, and somehow Clark is the one who leaves the possession with another technical attached to her name. When the same outcome keeps following the same player, people are naturally going to demand an explanation. At a certain point, the league can't just tell fans they are imagining the pattern. The league has to show why the standard is actually consistent.
Want little Miss Tim Donaghy investigated right now. You're a referee. Why are you not refereeing? What are you looking at? How do you not see Caitlin Clark get bumped and rolled and then bump into you because she got bumped? How do you not see that? And then the first thing you do is not even understand the situation. You say, hey, I understand that Caitlin Clark has the 7 technical. As a referee, you should know that because she's a mainstay in the league who brings a lot of popularity, a lot of fans, a lot of revenue to the league. So you want to be a little bit careful when you give her 8 technical because she's going to be suspended for it. But not this referee. So I need her investigated because why? Because I also noticed Caitlin Clark was getting grabbed and pushed to the ground a lot in the third and fourth quarter, and some of them resulted in turnovers. I'm not going to blame it all on the referees, but I did notice it, and there were no calls. So now I'm thinking about this referee and her quick whistle to say, hey, let's give Caitlin Clark this technical in this game, and I'm saying, little Miss Tim Donaghy might be onto something, but whatever. Let's dive into this game, man.
And fans absolutely noticed. When words spread that Clark would be suspended, the dominant response wasn't people scratching their heads trying to understand a complicated rule. It was anger, because the play itself didn't look complicated. The biggest star in the WNBA was about to miss one of Indiana's most important remaining games because of contact that appeared accidental to a huge portion of the audience watching from every available angle. When thousands of people with no control over the outcome can replay the footage and independently reach the same basic conclusion, while the officiating crew somehow arrives at the harshest possible interpretation, it becomes difficult to pretend the officials are automatically the most reasonable observers in the room. And what makes this more frustrating is that the incident didn't emerge from nowhere. It felt like the culmination of an entire season of debates surrounding how Clark is officiated. The WNBA has watched technical after technical turn into another argument about whether its referees are managing Clark differently, and yet the underlying problem keeps resurfacing. Fans shouldn't need a viral backlash every time a questionable call deserves another look. Indiana shouldn't need its coach to publicly challenge an officiating decision before the league decides replay might be useful. And the audience shouldn't be able to predict that when Clark takes contact, reacts, and the whistle finally arrives, she's going to be the one punished. If this happened once, move on. When the same storyline repeats throughout a season, ignoring it becomes harder than correcting it.
Telling Holly Rowe, I'll see you on Tuesday and I'll be playing, is absolutely crazy. But she's right. I mean, and I said in my live, I'm like, it's going to be rescinded. I'm pretty confident it's going to be rescinded. But Caitlin Clark called that shot. She said, I'll see you on Tuesday. Because, of course, Holly asked her about it right after the game. She's like, yeah, it was unintentional contact. I didn't even say anything to her. I said nothing. So as expected, Caitlin Clark's 8th technical foul, which would have made her a 1-game suspension and would have made her ineligible to play on Tuesday against the New York Liberty, has been rescinded. She's still at 7. She gets to play on Tuesday against the Liberty. Because you could tell it wasn't intentional. Like, yeah, she made contact with the ref, but like she kind of fell into her. And you guys know I'm going to call a spade all the time, even to my own detriment sometimes. That 8th technical by Caitlin was not warranted, and this rescinded technical is the right call.
Indiana, to its credit, didn't simply accept the suspension and pretend there was nothing it could do. The Fever challenged the technical almost immediately, continuing what has become an unfortunately familiar process this season. They had the video. They had Clark explaining that the collision wasn't intentional. They had Stephanie White publicly stating that the call was wrong. From a common-sense perspective, it looked like a straightforward appeal. But technical fouls are not casually erased every time a team complains about one. Well over 100 technicals have been assessed around the league this season, while only a very small portion have ultimately been rescinded. That means teams normally face an uphill battle once an official has made the call and the league has entered it into the record. Which is precisely why this reversal matters so much. If a play with virtually no apparent intent can still produce a technical severe enough to trigger an automatic suspension, and then requires a formal challenge before the league corrects it, how many less obvious calls never receive the same level of scrutiny? A review system is useful, but it shouldn't become the only thing standing between players and major consequences created by questionable live judgments.
And here go the WNBA refs. Caitlin gets her 8th technical foul today for trying to find her balance, where the ref continues to say that Caitlin intentionally sought her out. We all watched this game. That's clearly not what happened, but it does continue to prove that the WNBA has a serious officiating issue where the calls are inconsistent and biased, and the tech was already rescinded. So are the refs not embarrassed at this point? Because what was the reason? That call looks personal, and I don't want to see this next year. I don't, because it interferes with the energy of the game, and I'm not watching to see refs interfere with the game or to see personal and emotional calls. I'm watching to see the players. So give us fair calls, give us consistent calls, and let these women play, because at this point it's distasteful, and I'm over it. So fix it, WNBA, please.
This time, though, the league moved quickly and reached the correct conclusion. Only hours after the controversy exploded, Clark's 8th technical was officially rescinded, not reduced, not postponed, not quietly ignored while everyone waited for another announcement. Removed. Her total returned to 7. The automatic 1-game suspension disappeared with it, and she remained eligible to face the New York Liberty exactly as she should have been from the beginning. The WNBA deserves credit for acting quickly once the play reached the review stage. The league could have stretched the process across multiple days out of concern that a fast reversal might look like special treatment for its most famous player. Instead, it examined the sequence and reached the same conclusion Clark had explained, the same conclusion White had described, and the same conclusion countless viewers reached from replay. But that's also why this situation is so damaging to confidence in the original call. If the evidence was convincing enough to erase the technical that quickly, why wasn't the accidental nature of the play recognizable on the floor? A rescinded technical does not prove the officiating system worked perfectly. It proves the first decision was wrong, and another layer of the system had to repair it. And once again, the wrong call happened in a major moment involving the same player who has spent the entire season surrounded by officiating controversy.
Caitlin Clark's 8th technical immediately rescinded by the league because this goofy-ass, dumbass, hating-ass ref was just looking for a reason.
Eventually, it's reasonable to ask why this particular player keeps ending up in these situations while so many others don't. Why does the normal tolerance for a star player's frustration seem to shrink when Clark is the person expressing it? Why should Indiana coaches, executives, fans, and players repeatedly feel as though they need to assemble a public argument before the league will revisit a call? Whether the explanation is unconscious bias, an unusually short leash created by Clark's reputation with officials, inconsistent crews, or simply a collection of individual mistakes, the responsibility for fixing it belongs to the WNBA. Indiana shouldn't have to treat appeals like another recurring part of its weekly basketball operation. there's also a cost to the league beyond wins, losses, and disciplinary totals. Every officiating controversy hijacks another news cycle that could have been spent talking about basketball. Instead of breaking down Clark's passing, Indiana's offense, or the challenge presented by New York's defense, everyone is once again discussing referees. That isn't helping Clark, it isn't helping the Fever, and it definitely isn't helping a league trying to turn unprecedented attention into long-term interest. Fans want to argue about basketball, not spend every other week wondering whether the next whistle will become the story.
I don't know if you caught that when Caitlin got her 8th tech.
I did.
And they said on the broadcast something about, like, not for our game.
She can't get suspended for the ABC game. It took about 2.2 seconds for them to rescind the technical, which I've never seen before.
It was, like, immediate. Like, Caitlin is never going to get that 8th card, by the way. Ever.
It's a big game. It's a nationally televised game.
There's so many other things that go with it that they're pushing. There's so much money on the line that y'all better get your asses up and play the Liberty.
So for now, Clark wasn't suspended, and Indiana didn't lose its star for one of the biggest games remaining on the schedule. She walked onto the court against New York, where she was supposed to be, directing the Fever offense and allowing her basketball to determine the conversation instead of a technical nobody could successfully defend once it reached formal review. That outcome matters. Indiana needs Clark available against elite opponents, and the league ultimately corrected a decision that would have unfairly removed her. But nobody should confuse the correction with proof that there was never a problem. Clark collided with an official because her momentum carried her somewhere she could no longer avoid, and after a season in which close calls have repeatedly seemed to fall against her, replay finally forced the system to acknowledge what happened. The technical is gone. The automatic suspension is gone. Clark stayed in the lineup, but the larger officiating question didn't disappear with them. The referees who created the controversy will continue working games. Clark will continue playing at full speed, and more judgment calls are inevitably coming. Until the WNBA seriously examines why the same player keeps becoming the center of these disputes, nobody should be surprised when another whistle produces the exact same argument all over again.